Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The saga of Jussie Smollett entered a pretty intense new phase today. A tale of victimhood is now a tale of unimaginable hubris. Smollett stands charged with a felony for plotting his own assault from the very beginning. Tonight we'll investigate how this happened, why it happened. We'll take a close look at Smollett's defenders who dismissed doubts about this story, doubts that any reasonable person would have had from day one, as conspiracy theories. Piers Morgan will join us too. But first, a rundown of everything that's happened today in Chicago, and for that we are joined by Fox's Trace Gallagher. Trace?
And Tucker, the media presence was immense for the Jussie Smollett bond hearing, but in the end, the courtroom drama could not hold a candle to what happened outside. In fact, while Smollett was settling up his $100,000 bond, a prosecutor from the Cook County State Attorney's Office spent 20-plus minutes detailing the entire case, including statements from the brothers who claimed Smollett staged the whole thing. Watch.
Smollett stated that he wanted them to appear to attack him on the evening of January 28, 2019, near his apartment building in Centerville. Defendant Smollett also stated he wanted the brothers to catch his attention by calling him an Empire F, Empire N.
Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, who was deferential to Smollett's initial claim, also lashed out today, saying he was offended by the actor's actions. Watch.
How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face by making these false claims?
And as Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass points out, Chicago police solve about 17% of the city's thousands of homicides, yet even with the department's thin resources, 24 investigators were assigned to the Smollett case. And today, Superintendent Johnson cited that. Watch.
As I look out into the crowd, I just wish that the families of gun violence in this city got this much attention, because that's who really deserves the amount of attention that we're giving to this particular incident.
Johnson went on to say that he realizes the city of Chicago has a racial divide and that it's hard for the city and country to come together. He also wonders how this might impact future cases. Listen.
My concern is that hate crimes would now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
And we should note Smollett could also face federal charges for allegedly sending himself a phony threat letter containing white powder, which turned out to be Tylenol. His next court appearance, March 14th. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks for that. Well, there's at least one big unanswered question in the case of Jussie Smollett tonight. Why did this happen? Why would a popular actor on a network TV show, someone who's rich and successful and famous, pay people to assault him and risk going to jail in the process? Well, at a press conference in Chicago today, the police superintendent wondered the same thing.
I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? How could someone look at the hatred and suffering associated with that symbol and see an opportunity to manipulate that symbol to further his own public profile?
Well, that's a fair question. What Smollett did was not simply illegal and weird. It was terrible for the country. So why did he do it? Well, the short answer appears to be he wanted a raise at work, and he thought this would get him that. The broader answer, the one that we should all think about, meditate on, is that Smollett was simply responding to the incentives that American society has created for him. Smollett pretended to be a victim because we reward victims. We've decided that it's more heroic to suffer than it is to achieve. That's the message of our culture, our politics, our workplaces. Jussie Smollett was simply doing his best to get ahead according to the rules that others made. And in fact, had his hoax succeeded, there is no doubt Smollett would have been richly rewarded for it. He'd probably get a significant bump in pay and an extended segment on Colbert. He would have been a hero. So Jussie Smollett was not crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Faking a hate crime was an entrepreneurial move. In modern America, victimhood is power. That's why so many powerful people claim it. It's why Elizabeth Warren pretended to be an American Indian. It's why at every low point during the entire span of his political career, Barack Obama invoked bias. It's why so many politicians do the same today. I have suffered, you cannot criticize me. The academic left has constructed an entire theology around the holiness of victimhood. It's called intersectionality. It comes with an elaborate rating system in which every group in America is assessed according to how much it has suffered. The more your group says it has been discriminated against, the more moral authority you receive. It's a pretty good deal for a lot of people, and they have no interest in changing it. And that explains why so many on the left initially jumped to Jussie Smollett's defense. They weren't simply defending him, they were defending identity politics. We could give you any number of examples of this, but we'll skip ahead to the most nauseating one of all. Watch anchor Robin Roberts of ABC, quote, News, beam with joy after Smollett finishes the most dishonest performance of his life, and then tell him his lies are beautiful.
I still want to believe, with everything that has happened, that there's something called justice. Because if I stop believing that, then what's it all for? Thank you, Jussie.
Thank you, Jussie. Well, before he claimed that white supremacists beat him up on the street, most people had never heard of Jussie Smollett. And after he became a victim, everybody wanted to be his friend. Here's Don Lemon over on CNN bragging about how he texts his new pal Jussie every single day. He's got Jussie's cell number. That's how close they are. Really tight.
My concern is for him.
Right, right.
And for his well-being. Every day, I say, I know you think I'm annoying. I can show you a text. I know you think I'm annoying, you, but I just want to know that you're doing.
Oh, okay.
That you're okay.
Yeah.
If you need somebody, you can talk to me. Because there's not a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Sometimes he responds, sometimes he doesn't. He responds and says, you are not annoying.
You can talk to me, Don Lemon says, because there aren't a lot of us out there. Well, here's the translation. Us means people who've been oppressed in the ways that Jussie Smollett has been oppressed. Lemon is letting you know that he's in that group too. Yes, he's a highly paid news anchor with his own TV show, and yet, like Jussie Smollett, Don Lemon is a holy victim. So there's a mad scramble over who's the victim here. Who is the victim? Well, there is one. What Smollett did was not a victimless crime. There's no such thing as that. An entire group of people did get slandered by this hoax. Regular people from outside the coastal cities. People with the wrong political beliefs and the wrong skin color. Smollett and his many defenders savagely attacked these people and are not apologizing for doing it. Instead, they're telling you, you hear this everywhere, that the real losers here are the authentic victims of hate crimes who won't be believed the next time. Okay, that's fine. But what about the innocent Americans they just poured venom on for 2 weeks because it matched some bigoted stereotype they had about Middle America? What about them? There's no mention of them. Don Lemon would very much like to keep up those attacks on those people. Attacking them allows him to feel oppressed. That is why when Smollett was finally caught, Lemon reacted in a very puzzling way. He didn't seem especially concerned that his buddy had lied to further divide the country to hurt America, which he did. No. That wasn't the real problem. The real problem, according to Don Lemon, is that Smollett's arrest might discredit the cult of victimhood.
This is playing out every single moment in cable news. Sean Hannity's going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second. Tucker Carlson is going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second.
Yeah, because when you tell the truth about a hate hoax, you're the real hater. What's the cost of this attitude so floridly on display to our society? What does it do to us? Well, think of it this way. What would happen to your kids if you woke them up every morning by telling them that they were victims? No matter how hard they worked, people would always hate them just for who they are. What if you did that? Would that be good parenting? Would it make your kids stronger, happier, more successful? No, it wouldn't. And good parents would never do that. Good parents tell their kids to take responsibility for their lives, not to blame others, to work as hard as they can to overcome obstacles. That's what good parents of all races and all backgrounds tell their kids. And if you don't believe it, just ask 10 well-adjusted, accomplished people if their parents allowed them to feel like victims. Again, it doesn't matter where they're from or what they look like. Ask them, did your parents tell you you're a victim? And not one of them will say yes. And yet we tell our citizens just the opposite. And you see the effects very clearly in the workplace, for example. In the years after the 2008 recession, there was an enormous surge of claims of workplace bias of all kinds. There is still no evidence that bigotry itself increased at all during those years. And yet when people felt threatened by a teetering economy, they knew that claiming victimhood status would give them an advantage. Can you blame them? No, you really can't. Not really. They didn't write the rules of our society. They're just following the rules that people like Don Lemon wrote. but at great cost. Piers Morgan is editor-at-large of DailyMail.com and a keen observer of everything that happens in the world. He joins us today. So, Piers, as a guy who's been in the news business for a long time, you must be wondering, why were the reporters following this the most credulous of all? Why didn't they smell a rat?
Well, it was the perfect storm, wasn't it, Tucker? This is where the victimhood culture that you so brilliantly articulated there meets Trump derangement syndrome, this disease which has afflicted so many, particularly liberal celebrities. And I think in Jussie Smollett, you had greed as a motivation, but you also had, he wanted to be a celebrity victim, as you said. He wanted people to feel sorry for him, to like him, to retweet him. But also he wanted to use the prism of his hatred for Donald Trump and all things Trump as the bedrock for this. They had to be two white Trump supporters in Making America Great caps who attacked him, because he knew that that would be the perfect vehicle to turn him into American hero. That actually, if he was attacked by Trump supporters who lynched him, or tried to lynch him with a noose and really, committing one of the worst hate crimes imaginable, then Jussie Smollett, would become a hero, and he would be a heroic victim. And in fact, he went further. In the Robin Roberts interview, he said that he fought back against these two guys. Well, we've now seen the size of them. These are two very big men. And our hero, Jussie, fought back. So he's a victim, but a hero who also fought back. And I look at this whole story. I tweet every day, all day. And I write columns 2-3 times a week. I didn't say a word about this, Tucker, from the moment the story broke.
I didn't know.
Something about this stank from the moment it happened. And I just stayed very quiet. I waited and I watched and I waited and I watched. And all the time, more and more stuff came out, from him not releasing his phone, to then releasing redacted records, to so on and so on. And slowly but surely the real story built up. But this guy had completely invented the whole attack. He'd staged it. He'd roped in his friends to do this. And I'm sorry, but I've already seen on social media people starting to feel sorry for this guy. We should cut him some slack. He's got mental health issues. That's always the first refuse of excuse for this kind of behavior. He's not mentally ill. He's greedy. And he's somebody who was craving attention. And a lot of the media, as I think is very apparent from this story, a lot of the mainstream media in America have gone so full-on anti-Trump that they were prepared to suspend all journalistic integrity and credibility in the way they reported this story by just believing every word this guy said. And they did it, Tucker, because we're now in a culture where my truth is perceived to be the truth. And it's not. Time and again now we see people where their truth, their idea of the truth, is a complete lie. Jussie Smollett claimed to have been effectively lynched. Everybody followed up with this. All the top Democrats were tweeting Kamala Harris to Cory Booker. It was a lynching. They were trying to lynch this guy. But it wasn't. The only thing that was lynched was the truth.
That's right. And the press embedded at the channel that you and I once worked at, among them. Piers Morgan, such a smart summation, as always. It's great to see you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
We've got more in this story now. We'll be joined later in the show by Dan Bongino and Chadwick Moore for even more on why this happened, what it means, and what happens next. That's in just a bit. We live in the age of the woke billionaire. Bet you never thought you'd live to see that. We're seeing it. Why are the biggest winners in our economic system endorsing socialism for America? There's a reason for that. We'll tell you what it is after the break. 2019 is only a couple months old. We haven't given it a name yet. So how about the year of the woke billionaire? Sit back and watch as the Democratic presidential candidates simultaneously jockey to establish the most left-wing possible credentials, and at the very same time, feverishly suck up to the super rich to fund their campaigns. We've seen some of this before. Tom Steyer and George Soros, those are the obvious examples. But there are many, many, many more. On Saturday, just this past Saturday, coming Saturday rather, Senator Cory Booker is attending a Silicon Valley fundraiser. It's hosted by Gary and Laura Lauder. They're heirs to the $14 billion Estee Lauder fortune. Kamala Harris just had a fundraiser in Beverly Hills that was attended by an army of wealthy studio execs. Kirsten Gillibrand didn't even start her campaign for president before asking the permission of Wall Street. So what's the message? Rich people are highly progressive now. And you can see why. They love mass immigration, it brings them servants, they support federally mandated snobbery masquerading as environmentalism. Abortion is essentially a sacrament to them, especially when practiced in poor neighborhoods. But here's the confusing part. These are, by definition, affluent people, and yet increasingly, confiscatory tax rates are a rallying cry for the Democratic Party. So why are billionaires so eager to back candidates who want to seize their assets to fund new entitlements? This is confusing. Here's one reason. Billionaires understand that they will never have to pay those taxes. Why? Because the top federal income tax rate stops at about $500 grand. So what's the difference between someone making $500,000 a year and someone making $50 million a year? The answer? The richer one can much more easily evade paying full freight, and they do. This group makes far more of their money on capital gains, which are taxed at only half the rate of your salary, and some of it's not even taxed at all. Under the 2017 tax law, investments in federally designated opportunity zones evade capital gains taxes entirely. One such opportunity zone, by the way, is right by the Army-Navy Country Club in Arlington, Virginia, one of America's richest zip codes. But even on their official tax returns, even on income, the richest Americans are paying less. According to the IRS, the top 1% of Americans pay about 27% of their income in taxes. But the top 10th of 1%, that's people who make $35 million a year, pay less than 26%. And the top 1,000th of a percent, the absolute richest, pay less than 24%. In other words, past a certain point, the richer you are, the less you pay. That's why billionaires back socialism. It doesn't cost them much. Dana Perino hosts the Daily Briefing with Dana Perino. She's also coming on later in the show on Final Exam with Greg Gutfeld. But for now, Dana, I'm rooting for you, as you know. Don't tell him. There is this really interesting dynamic where the Democratic Party, is becoming openly socialist in some cases, but certainly embracing economic populism, but it's still funded by the richest segment of our society. How does that work?
It is pretty interesting, and actually to have Bernie Sanders launch his campaign in the week after basically another fellow Democratic socialist chased Amazon out of New York City, it put Bernie Sanders to the left of Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo. It's not easy to do that. In some ways, I feel like Bernie has been a victim of his own success. He has won this war without even firing a shot. In 2016, he basically said, this is what I'm going to be for. He ran unabashedly on it, and he had a lot of support. And I think if the Democrats hadn't rigged their primary, he might have actually been the nominee. Perhaps good for him that he wasn't, because then he had time to let these ideas percolate. Do you think there would be an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2020, or 2019, if there had not been a Bernie Sanders in 2016?
No, it's a good point.
Absolutely not. And also, the other thing you have is you have Democratic candidates like Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, both taking great pains this week to say that they are not socialists. They are capitalists, and they have to explain it. But you have to ask yourself, is it a distinction without a difference? If you are talking about free health care for all, free college for all, unabashedly bashing the financial institutions, and promising lots of things that are going to look like a socialist country, that is why the Democrats find themselves already, in February of 2019, on the losing end of a debate with Donald Trump.
We're almost out of time, but I'm just interested, since you're steeped in the numbers, are they going to lose that debate? I mean, they'll lose it as far as I'm concerned, but is the public on the side of capitalism or socialism? Sincere question.
Well, I actually think that Karl Rove has talked about this for a while, and he's right. If younger people in America say that they more align with socialism, we should take them seriously. Yeah. Just this week, Tucker, we found that most people in America could not pass a basic citizenship test that immigrants have to take in order to get a chance to live here in America. So we have a lot of making up to do, but I do think that the country is still a center-right country, but conservatives, capitalists, people who do not want socialism have to try to make a very good case for it, because Bernie Sanders has a grassroots organization across the country willing to send him $25 over and over and over again. That makes a big difference. They're not just going to big donors and billionaires to get funding, even though they do that too. They have support all across the country, and people should take that very seriously.
Yeah, they should take it. I couldn't agree more. There's a reason people feel that way. Dana Perino, it's great to see you, as always. We're going to see you in just a minute.
Okay.
Well, the Democratic Party is changing very fast, as you know. We try to chronicle it on this show. They're for socialism now. They're also embracing reparations for slavery, something that people talk about in the fringes. No big candidate has ever endorsed it. A bunch did just in the last week. That's next.
He's Director of Strategic Communication for the Trump 2020 campaign, just announced, and congratulations to you. Former Press Secretary to Vice President Mike Pence. Great to have you with us. These talks, let's start with these issues that are going to define, and I want to find out your thinking as to how much of the 2020 outcome. And these trade talks right now are, a lot of people are not paying attention to, but the business community, the influence campaign that's being run by the Chinese, Wall Street, etc., it's unrelenting, directed straight at the president. Your thoughts on its importance to the president's reelection?
I think it's very important because it will go to set our economy on an even stronger trajectory for a very long time to come. And Lou, presidents of both parties for many years, if not decades, have talked about fixing the trade problems with China, but none of them actually ever did it. Right. This is a president who said he was going to do it. He's going to do it. And the American workers, American companies are going to benefit. They're already benefiting from a strong economy. And when he can get this straightened out, I think the economy is going to be that much stronger, and it's going to be sustaining.
And the other issue that he ran on, a signature issue of the 2016 campaign, the wall. He is being contested, again, by basically the same host of opposition, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, the Koch brothers, whether it's a Business Roundtable, Wall Street, maybe even, for all I know, the Chinese as well, in building the wall. How important is it, in your judgment?
I think it's very important. I mean, this is a president who believes in keeping his promises. We've had so many presidents in the past say one thing and do another when they were in office. This is a president who believes in doing what he said he was going to do. The wall is one of those things. And even when you get beyond campaign promises, it's the right thing to do. The president understands about the drugs that are flowing across the border, the fentanyl, the heroin, the things that are poisoning so many of our neighborhoods, and then the crime. The president wants legal immigration, but he wants it to be legal immigration. And so this is all part and parcel to his plan to securing our country and making it a safer place for Americans and people who come here to work and can fulfill those jobs.
And as things stand now, as you well know, the Democrats, as the president points out, they're the party of crime, open borders, drugs, death and devastation. This is an extraordinary sound, a sentence from the border states. It's a Honduran migrant responding to the question whether or not he would be comfortable with Beto O'Rourke's suggestion that the walls be taken down between the United States and Mexico.
When you hear the Democrat candidates say, take the wall down, there should not be a wall, how do you feel about that?
Very comfortable. The wall is like not giving nobody a chance.
Not giving anybody a chance, Mark Lauder. Your thoughts?
No, and I mean, this again is just one of those reasons why the president is so right on this issue. He knows that walls work. He knows that, the reason why we have doors and walls around our homes is not because we hate the people on the outside. It's because we love the people on the inside. And by the way, most walls lead to doors. Use them. And we can do it legally. So this is an issue that the president is absolutely rock solid on. And to all the Democrats and folks who are throwing up these hissy fits over the national emergency, let's remember that President Clinton declared a national emergency to stop the import of blood diamonds from Sierra Leone. That actually didn't challenge our national security and make people at home safer. It was the right policy, but it was also a national emergency. Or stopping the investment in Angola. These are not things that threatened our homeland and our citizens. They were the right policy decisions. They were also national emergencies. The president's using the power of the office to protect the American people.
Mark Lauder, good to have you with us. And it was President Trump, after all, running, who was talking about building a wall, but with a big, beautiful gate and door. He acknowledged that from the very beginning and reinforces it now throughout. Mark, good to have you with us. Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you, Lou.
Appreciate it. Up next, how America views North Korea as President Trump prepares for his second summit with Kim Jong-un. We'll take that up with General Jack Keane and much more right after the break. Stay with us. Headlines tonight: actor Jussie Smollett released on bail today. He was charged with felony disorderly conduct for filing a false police report. Today's hearing came after Smollett lied to police about the fake hate crime attack that he conjured up last month. We're less than a week away from President Trump's second summit meeting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. A new Fox News poll finds 46% of registered voters now approve of the president's policies on North Korea. Only 41% disapprove. Joining us tonight, retired four-star General, Fox Business Chief Strategic Analyst, General Jack Keane. General, good to see you. And this is interesting to see these numbers in the polling. The president building support for his view on bringing North Korea to the table and denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's largely due, one, because they are talking. This is the second summit. And two, the testing, which had a whole air of crisis about it, with ballistic missiles flying over Japan, flying towards our other allies in the region, and threatening to use nuclear weapons against the United States. So that speech is gone, and so is that testing. I think that contributes to what's taken place here. But, and there is a big but, that North Korea has not given us yet anything tangible in terms of dismantling, disarming nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. Hopefully, we'll get some kind of a breakthrough here as a result of this summit. Remains to be seen.
Perhaps I infer incorrectly, but somewhat differently than you. I do see the end of ballistic missile tests flying over Japan, as you point out, and other places. We've seen an absence of testing for almost a year and a half now as a result of the president's engagement with Kim Jong-un. That period of some 15, 16 months in which there's been no testing, no bellicosity per se, is in marked contrast to the 30 years that preceded this presidency, in which the North Koreans were full-time aggravants in global geopolitics.
Well, that's true. I mean, but Kim Jong-un is the leader among the three of them, grandfather, father, and now grandson, who truly accelerated the nuclear testing and ballistic missiles to a degree that his predecessors never had. But remember, at the first summit, the president and Kim Jong-un both agreed to denuclearize, and hopefully here there'll be a tangible step too. I think to do that, what our government would like to see is that there a timetable to denuclearize with an inventory of their assets to support it, and a commitment that there would be independent inspectors to verify that dismantling. Some kind of schedule to do that would certainly be a major tangible thing going forward.
I want to turn very quickly as we wrap up here. We're out of time, unfortunately, but Vladimir Putin said he'd be perfectly willing to bring back the Cuban Missile Crisis in 2019. What do you make of the statement, and what should be the U.S. response?
Well, I think it's Putin bluster again, psychologically trying to undermine the United States, as he's done before so successfully with Obama, threatening escalation, and as a result of that, no action taken. I believe what we should do here is what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s when he deployed Pershing missiles to Europe. As a result of that, the Soviet Union came to the negotiating table, and we got the 1987 INF Treaty Agreement. The Russians have been violating that agreement. We should up our game in terms of countering that threat. We should not expose the American people to that threat or our allies. And I think as a result of that, there's a very good opportunity that negotiations will be restarted again to put together a new treaty, and this time hopefully to be able to pull China into it. So I think the president is absolutely on the right path here, and I think he understands what Putin is up to here.
General Jack Keane, always good to talk with you. Thanks, General.
Yeah, good talking to you, Lou.
Up next, Andrew McCabe's convenient memory lapses, contradictions, conflict. My goodness. Who was on board with the deep state's plan to remove President Trump from office? And why in the world aren't these people in jail? We'll take it up with Jason Chaffetz here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back. On Wall Street, stocks closing lower. The Dow down 104 points. The S&P down 10. The Nasdaq lost 29. Volume on the big board, 3.5 billion shares. Crude oil down just over 0.5% to nearly $57 a barrel. Gold down 1.5%. Silver down nearly 2.5%. A reminder, listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Andrew McCabe telling reporters today 2 cabinet members were thought to be on board with Rod Rosenstein's plan to invoke the 25th Amendment against President Trump, as if he could do that. When pressed on who those cabinet members were, McCabe said he couldn't very clearly remember who Rod was talking about. Well, it was just 2 names you would have thought. Well, never mind. And veteran journalist Laura Logan says she's become a target of the left-wing national media herself for calling out their obvious anti-conservative prejudice.
They can't take down the substance of what you're saying, right? They can't go after the things that matter. So they smear you personally. They go after your integrity.
Laura Logan, you've got to give her credit for making that statement. It's obvious to many of us, but for her to do so took some considerable bravery, and we commend her. Joining us tonight, Jason Chaffetz, former Republican congressman from Utah, former House Oversight Committee chairman, author, Fox Business contributor, great American. An attempted coup, and you've got Andrew McCabe contradicting himself, confessing at every turn on his book tour that he tried to unseat the President of the United States in a considerable conspiracy at the FBI and DOJ. Your reaction?
Well, I think the guy should actually be prosecuted. I don't think he should be on a book tour. If you go back and look at the February 2018 Inspector General report, 39 pages, it lays out the case, details 4 times where he lied to federal authorities, 3 times under oath. The Department of Justice has prosecuted everybody from Manafort to Stone to Flynn to, these people because they lied to federal authorities. The former acting director of the FBI lied to federal authorities. Why is he not prosecuted?
Why are none of these people being prosecuted? Of all of the people who were forced out, resigned, fired at the top of DOJ and principally the FBI, not one prosecution. Jason, what is going on? Why in the world is there not someone standing up? And do you think it will be William Barr to insist on investigation and prosecution? And I'm not talking about one of those endless year-by-year investigations the Justice Department and FBI have become famous for. I'm talking about moving ahead smartly and getting to the facts.
Well, Attorney General Barr has the opportunity to be the most consequential Attorney General of our time. He really does. And the parallel that I see, Lou, is, on the Smollett case, you hate the disgusting effort of what this person put law enforcement through and the hate crime that he actually engaged in. But look at what the Chicago Police Department did. They investigated it. It took less than a month, and then they put some handcuffs on him, and now they're prosecuting him, all less than 30 days by doing some actual law enforcement work.
Yeah.
Why can't they do that in the federal government?
You know why? Because they're trying to cover up their crimes, their corruption. It's that straightforward, isn't it? I mean, they're burying the Obama administration's crimes against the Republic, the Constitution, and the nation, for crying out loud. Whether it's Benghazi, whether it is the Justice Department of Eric Holder that he politicized to the point of becoming simply a political arm of President Obama.
No, look, clearly the unthinkable happened, and that is Hillary Clinton lost the election, and suddenly their whole house of cards started to fold under them. And then when the president did the smart thing, which was, by the way, probably the most bipartisan thing in Washington, D.C., and that is the firing of James Comey, suddenly all the protective blankets that were on these people went away, and they were worried about being exposed. That's why they landed this counterpunch and trying to come up with an investigation to protect themselves. And then you see what's happening here. But these people, they've got to be prosecuted. The Inspector Generals did a fabulous job a year ago detailing why Mr. McCabe should be in jail.
I concur. You mentioned the Inspector General. Where the hell is he now? And why haven't we heard from him? And what has happened to John Hoover, special counsel with portfolio at large? I mean, good God Almighty, what is going on?
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of the Inspector General. He laid out that 500-page plus report. One of us. He did his job, but he's the one that got us all the information that we have now, Lou. That's good stuff. And he laid out a year ago the case against McCabe. Okay? Now, he has work to do on FISA abuse and the other things that happened there. Best I can tell, May, June is about what they're going to come up with, but it's going to be the most definitive report to come out and the most conclusive. From the Inspector General. He has the most credibility in town, and we got to really listen to what Michael Horowitz has to say on this.
And we're to hear from Robert Mueller, we are told soon. Do you think it will be in the next week or so?
I mean, there's an awful lot of people out there saying it could be tomorrow. It could be next week.
I will accept
then
that.
Attorney General Barr's got to be able to review that. I mean, this has gone on far too long. It should have happened about 6 months ago, if not ever, because I don't know that they ever could justify it. But
well, they can't justify it. I love the fact James Clapper says it will be anticlimactic. Thank you very much, James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, the Three Stooges. Jason Chaffetz, always good to talk with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
You bet. Up next, more on the ongoing trade talks with China, what the United States must do. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Who is Miss Universe, a beautiful young woman. Talk to me about finding that in her, because you said it wasn't really that easy for you to meet someone.
We met through Night to Shine, which is one of our initiatives. It's a worldwide prom for people with special needs, and her half-sister has severe special needs. She was kind of the matchmaker for us, and it's just, certain things that people think we need to have in common. Like, she was into pageants, I was into sports. Till this year, she had never been to a baseball or football game, but we didn't care. What was most important for us is the deepest things, and our faith and our values, and the way we want to treat people, and the way we love our family, and I think that's what really drew us together.
You had dyslexia. You struggled with dyslexia.
Still do.
Still do. It's the way it works. What kind of impact did that have on your life, and what would you say to other young people who struggle with that?
It was very disappointing for a while when I was young. Like dang it, like this. I would work hard on it, but I just wouldn't get certain things. And then my mom took me to get tested. We found I had dyslexia, and then I met a tutor that helped me figure out how I learn best. I figured out I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I started to adjust. I started to do this with my playbooks. I started to do it with math. I started to do it with English. All these things of how I wanted to learn. By the time I got to the University of Florida, which is a very good academic school, I knew how I learned. I knew how I would want to study. I knew how I would want to practice. I knew how I could overcome these obstacles. That's also something I love sharing with young people, is that just because you have a setback, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be better for it. Honestly, that could be one of the biggest blessings in your life, because you have to learn how to overcome that, how to adapt. But when you do that, you're that much better for the long run.
I want to talk to you a little bit about football and about those obstacles, and about Aaron Hernandez, who you played with in Florida, and tried to help to some extent. There's a moment that was captured on a mic between you and Tom Brady, talking about trying to help him. Now that we know more about what was going on with him and the damage that his brain had sustained and the challenges that he had with his own sexuality and all of that, what do you think about him now looking back?
Well, I think that's a really deep, big question. Aaron was someone that we loved, that I loved, that we supported. We're all fighting different battles in our life. Aaron was someone that for 6 months in a row did a devotional with me and Coach Meyer. And he was someone that honestly probably went to the hospital to visit kids with me as much as any other teammate that I've ever had. And, there's all things that we're all dealing with, and you don't know what someone's going through. And that's why it's so important to to be there to help people, because you don't know what's going on in the inside. And so I just know that that was someone that we loved and cared for very deeply.
How did you feel about it when you heard what happened?
Well, it's I mean, the whole situation is hard, and it hurts, and it's a lot to take in, and I had been around him a good amount around that time, and it's hard.
So you started something new. You were producing a movie,
Yes.
Run the Race. What is Run the Race, and why did you decide that this is a story that you wanted to tell?
I never had the goal of getting into the movie industry, and still really don't. I just had the goal of impacting people and encouraging people and inspiring young people, but, ultimately about faith and about understanding there's a purpose and a plan for our lives and why we're here, and hopefully the people that see it will be able to walk away encouraged.